afternoon from Los Angeles, and welcome to Stock Market Today, sponsored by Interactive Brokers. Now, on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at ZTO Express, Owens Corning and Roku. But before we do that, we got to take a look at those major indexes. It's Alyssa Corum here with Justin Nielsen. And Justin, pretty interesting session today, of course, driven by those headlines as always. The S&P edging into the green right here at the end of the day. The Dow also reversing higher, and the NASDAQ coming well off of its intraday lows.
Yeah, so the NASDAQ at its worst was down about 1.2%. That was, of course, after the Fed did their quarter point rate cut, which Ed and I were talking about yesterday was kind of like, are we going to get it? Are we not? The odds were kind of really changing quite a bit. But we did get the quarter rate point cut, and there was actually someone that was looking at a 50 basis point cut. And, so one member, two members thought unchanged, but everyone else was kind of in line with voting for that quarter point. Now, what happened was Fed Chair Powell was talking a little bit about the expanded balance sheet, and that was something that helped rally stocks and make for a good close.
That's right. Well, we will definitely keep an eye on that, and if the NASDAQ had closed at the lows, then that would have put it really close to that 50-day moving average. Right. Still an area for us to watch.
Yes, exactly. Because, as we've been talking about quite a bit, we have been getting support at that 50-day moving average line. It's kind of corresponding with that 8,000 level that we're seeing on the NASDAQ composite. So that's kind of becoming a critical junction. If it crosses below that, then we might be in a little bit more trouble. But so far, we've been getting support despite some pretty nasty headlines, that we've been getting. And so I think, again, what Ed and I were talking about yesterday, resilience is kind of the name of the game right now in terms of what the market action is showing.
All right, well, that's great. Well, let's take a look at some stocks, starting with ZTO Express, known as the FedEx of China.
Exactly.
And we did see a reversal higher today, a strong move for ZTO into a buy range, up about 5.6% for the day after recently testing a breakout there.
Yeah, it had broken out and then it kind of pulled back a little bit. And this is one where you have to watch. Sometimes pullbacks are very normal to see in these stocks. But what it was able to do today was it was able to retake its buy point. Now, this is in the same time FedEx really got slammed today. It missed earnings, and they are potentially missing out on some revenue from one of their big customers, Amazon, who's coming up with their own delivery service options. So ZTO Express, again, what we saw here is a nice move. I think it was up more than 4% for the day, retaking that buy point. And so this is where, just because it kind of comes in a little bit, pulls back a little bit, it's not anything to get panicked about. Of course, we always have that 7 to 8% stop from our purchase price, so we make sure that we're not taking a big loss.
Right.
But so far, ZTO is still looking just fine.
That it is. And now let's pivot our attention to Owens Corning. It's been able to build and break out of a couple of bases this year, though the group isn't really one in the construction area that's super on our radar. I mean, I think we've been a little distracted this year by all those software names.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now turning our attention to other areas of strength now that we've seen this rotation.
Yeah, and the group actually has, in the last month or two here, it's gone from number 50 to number 19. So it is making its way up, and we've been seeing some of the home builders and some of the construction start getting some action. This is kind of what we call a bottoming base. It kind of was trailing around the 200-day moving average line, and now it's basing. It doesn't move up a lot recently. It hasn't moved up a lot recently, but we are seeing another base here. This is another one where we saw a little bit of a pullback after it broke out, and now it's retaking that buy point and it's in buy range. Of course, Owens Corning, they do like the insulation and roofing shingles. They're pretty much known for their Pink Panther pink insulation. A lot of people might have seen those commercials or seen that in their houses. But it's got a nice base here, and it's a composite rating of 95. So this is something that does have both the earnings and relative strength.
Right, and I think a great lesson in putting on your blinders a little bit in terms of maybe your preconceived notions for a group. Maybe it's not that exciting,
exactly,
pink insulation, but look at the data, look at how the group is doing and how it's improved, and look at the composite rating.
Yeah. And this is where some of our screens, again, are they're objective. So it's not really about what your opinion is or what you find, the sexy stock of today.
Right.
It's really about what the numbers tell you.
Yes, very key. And let's take a look at Roku. Speaking of, a sexier stock, I guess you could say,
right.
but not a good look today with the stock finishing down about 14%. But it's been after such a huge run.
And that's the thing, is it had this big earnings move, and then it continued to move up. It was actually one of the few stocks that was bucking the trend of the market for a while there, and it was really extended above its 50-day moving average. Not what we would call climax top action, but it was getting
very extended.
Very extended.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about that. So what you saw just last week was a couple pretty bad hits, and those hits just kept on coming. Now, the streaming space is getting very crowded. So you've got Apple TV Plus that got announced. Disney Plus is coming out in November as well, and now Facebook announced that they're going to have Portal TV. You had Comcast announcing an Xfinity, Peacock by NBC Universal, which is owned by Comcast.
Everywhere you turn, whether it's a media company or a tech company, it's all kind of converging on the streaming front.
And so you couple that with the fact that it was so extended. Now, in terms of the chart, what do you do here? It did get support at the 50-day moving average. Now, granted, it's still 26% off of its high around that. So that's kind of not something that necessarily gives you much comfort, but it has gotten support, so that is why we wait a lot of times until the end of the week to see how it holds. But you probably are looking at some more time before this is able to resolve itself.
Right.
You've got all of those features, all of those new competitors coming out in November and April. So, when you see a sharp drop like that, it usually takes time to recover.
Right. So, for investors who do have a position in Roku, seeing this pullback here, maybe wait till the end of the week, barring some sharp move lower, or how do you?
It depends on your time frame. This is why ideally you're selling into that strength on the way up.
Right.
But if this is a long-term hold for you, because switch your time frame and start looking at the weekly chart, and this is a recent IPO that could, be at the very beginning of its move. You look at how these IPOs kind of go from their start to their ending point. And this is just a pullback to the 50-day. So it could be like nothing, but you have to really.
So if you have a lot of cushion, keep an eye on it. But the pullback also does mean a new base could potentially form here.
Exactly. So and that's going to take time. That's going to take time.
All right. Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on that. But in the meantime, we want to let you know that we do have a new episode of the Investing Strategies series out now. You can head to investors.com/investing strategies to watch. It was a really interesting show this week. We were able to really dive into those recent Apple product announcements and maybe where Apple is headed. Also, we took a look at the UFO ETF, which is all about investing in the space economy. So it's a good show. Check it out. And then we also have another episode of our podcast with Arusha coming up tomorrow. We have a new episode every Thursday, and you can go to investors.com/podcast to watch that. And Justin, you've been quite a frequent guest on the podcast.
Lately, yeah. In fact, I was going to say Owens Corning was actually something that's on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index.
Oh, interesting.
So Arusha and I were talking about ESG investing just last week.
Yeah. So if you want to really, ramp up and catch up on some of these episodes before the next one drops, you should definitely do that. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.